Alright folks, this evening I'm going to show you exactly how you can make some grain spawn quickly if you're in a hurry. Stay tuned. So there are a lot of different ways that you can actually do this. The one that I usually use is I'll just take a 40-pound bag of grain, whole oats is what I prefer, put it in a trash can, and then just fill it with, about 6 inches of water above where the grain level was, because they're going to float. This evening, so I've actually used an old pressure cooker, but we had an old stock pot laying around, so I put it to good use too. And same thing, I just cover it with a few inches of water to cover, and then I put it on the stove and bring it up to just a really light simmer, just a few bubbles. I mean, if you get it going too crazy, it can cause your grains to burst, and then once you load them into the bag and then pressure cook them and sterilize them, they can turn into kind of a mushy mess. So I like to kind of err on the drier side. That way also, after I drain them, if there's still a little bit of water, kind of hanging out in the grains, it'll usually absorb during the sterilization cycle. And then of course there's other methods that you can use, such as the no-soak method, where you simply add dry grain to a bag, chase it with a certain volume of water behind that, and then you can just pressure cook it directly. But this is what I like to do if I need some grain made real quick. I can get this done in about an hour, maybe two, and then I can go ahead and start that sterilization cycle. So once you've brought your grain to a simmer, kind of over, I like to use like medium-high heat, like I think 8. But once it reaches that, then I'll let it simmer for about 15 minutes or so. Sometimes as long as 20. I just kind of, by now I can kind of just look at it and tell when it's ready. So excuse me for being a little bit unspecific and unscientific. I really just kind of fly by the seat of my pants when it comes to this sort of thing. But once that's taken place, then I'll remove it from the heat. And then I'll take my pot and I'll go ahead and drain that in a colander. I'll allow that to sit. I'll check it periodically. And you can hear there's still water coming out of it. So I'll swish it around a little bit and get some of the excess water out of it. After that, we can go ahead and load it up into our bags. This is one that's already done. This is a 5-pound grain bag, which is about to become some grain spawn for our farm here. We'll get that up to 5 pounds, and then it's on to the next one. So then, once you've got a few of these guys loaded up, honestly, you don't have to do this next step. Some people just fold them, stick them straight in. I don't like to do that. I prefer to go ahead and rubber band them. And people get real fancy, and they cut special squares of Tyvek on the second interior fold, and you can get as fancy as you like. I've been doing this for over 3 years now, and if it isn't broke, don't fix it. This has always worked very well. So now, and please excuse this god-awful wall back here, I'm going to have this mess fixed in just a couple of weeks. So, anyway, just bear with me. The unit that we're using today is an All-American 75X. And it's a really awesome little piece of equipment. It's got an internal heater, almost like a water heater. And this is an autoclave, a true autoclave, not a pressure cooker. And its normal operating pressure is 17 psi. So things become sterile much quicker in here. So, but anyway, this thing is not cheap. It was more than my first car, for sure. More than my first 3 cars, actually. And kind of the Cadillac of substrate sterilizers. But I love this thing. It's great. So now that we've got it loaded up, and by the way, I can fit 5 5-pound blocks in here, whether it be sawdust or grain or whatever. We'll go ahead and cut our unit on. We'll go ahead and crank it all the way up. Now this isn't an automatic unit, for anybody curious. It actually you have to control the temperature manually. Also, before you run your cycle, you're going to want to go ahead and go over here to this valve, if you own one of these and you're new to it. And you want to flip it open like that. Once it has reached operating temperature, 15, 17 psi, you go ahead and flip that open. It's going to dump a lot of steam out of there, but that gets rid of any air pockets and really makes sure that your sterilization cycle takes place. Sometimes with that extra air in there, it can leave pockets where sterilization doesn't quite happen. With larger volumes, so if you're sterilizing jars, you can get away with doing those at 15 psi for about 90 minutes. If you're using larger volumes, 4-pound bags, 5-pound bags, 6-pound bags, and beyond, you want to sterilize for at least 2 hours. 2.5 is even better at 15 psi. Now remember, this runs at 17, so once we get up to 17 psi, I could probably get away with running these for about an hour and a half. However, I like to run them for about 2 just to be on the safe side, and it always works. So I hope you learned something. Maybe this helps you. Take care.